Those six, Maxi, Paul George, Embiid, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, and Andre Drummond, those guys are going to be the guys that, no matter what, like, even if they have a bad camp, I think they're locked into a solid role with this team. They're also the highest paid players on the team. They're the only guys that are not on veteran minimums. So those guys are pretty much our six that are locked in. Sixers fans, I can't explain how hype I am for this season. We are less than a month out from the start of the season. We are about 2 weeks out from training camp, and I just can't contain my excitement. Every single video that the Sixers social media team puts out, I get super excited. I see Yabusele dunking. I see Paul George shooting threes assisted from Tyrese Maxey. I see Caleb Martin wearing the chain. I mean, Embiid's looking slim. It's crazy how everything is just all coming together at this one time, and training camp hasn't even started yet. The team decided they were going to come out early and put some weeks of practice in before training camp even starts. I think everyone on this roster is locked in trying to win a championship this year, and I just can't wait for the start of that. So, we got Media Day on September 30th, so that's about a week from right now, and then training camp from October 1st to October 5th. So I'm excited to see all the clips that come out. If the media is allowed in there to post clips, um, man, let's get it started. Some different edits that people have made. I've tried to crop their name into each of the videos that they made so that while they're rolling, you can maybe check out these people's accounts if they do clips often. So today we're going to talk about the minutes that I think each player is going to get this year. Um, we have a few players that I'm pretty sure are locked into minutes. And then we have a few players that are going to be fighting for the scraps of the remaining minutes. So I'm going to go through and talk about the players in order from most minutes to least minutes, and really dive into that to figure out what the rotation might look like, different lineup combinations, and things like that. So we're going to get started with our roster minutes rotation prediction. And starting us off, Tyrese Maxey is going to lead us off this year. He's going to play the most minutes per game. He's the youngest star on the team, and, he has fresh legs. So I see Tyrese Maxey taking up about 32 and a half minutes per game, which is right around what he's got in the last couple years. I think 2 years ago, he was probably right around 31, 32 minutes. Last year, taking on a bigger role, I think he was playing 34 minutes a game, which I feel like was a little bit too much. And with this talent around us and with the depth that we have at the guard position, hopefully he doesn't have to play 34, 35 minutes a game. Next up, Paul George. So while Joel Embiid is the best overall player on the team, I'm hoping he doesn't play the most minutes. And that would be fairly consistent with how the last few years have gone. Tobias and Maxey or Harden and all these guys that Embiid's play with usually play more minutes per game than him. So Paul George, I believe, is going to play more minutes per game than Embiid at 31 and a half minutes per game. I can see him playing more than that if we're in a lot of tight games. But if the Sixers take care of business against teams like the Hornets or teams like the Wizards, then I'm hoping there'll be some games where they're playing, less minutes per game, and they're able to keep that average right around 31 and a half, 32 minutes, which leads us into Joel Embiid. I would like for him to be at 31 minutes per game. He probably is going to average more. He doesn't like to sit, especially in close games. Even when he's at like his minutes restriction, he tends to want to play more. Especially if he has a hot hand, the team tends to leave him in longer than they should. I remember when he had like the 30 and 10 streak going, there were a couple games where he might have played a little bit more than he should have. So I'm hoping that the team keeps him at about 31 minutes a game. And yeah, those are the only three guys on the team I foresee playing 30 minutes a game. Um, Caleb Martin would be next on my list. It was tough between him and Oubre. I think they're going to end up probably within a minute of each other in average minutes per game. But I think Caleb Martin being a better shooter, um, is going to get him a little bit more time on the floor just by like a very tiny margin more than Kelly Oubre. So I see Caleb Martin at 27 and a half minutes a game, which is about in between where he's been in Miami. He's had seasons between 25 minutes and 30 minutes a game. He's always been in like that range. So I think this would be fairly consistent with that, with him being like the fourth highest paid guy on the team. And then I already kind of mentioned it, but Kelly Oubre being right behind him at 27 minutes per game. I could see either of these guys averaging more minutes per game than this, especially with Embiid and Paul George sitting out a bunch of games. I really can see them, um, you know, maybe fluctuating up more than 27 minutes a game. But I think if everyone's healthy, everyone's playing, everyone's in the rotation, that's where I see them being at. And then the last guy of the who I'd call the six that basically 100% have a defined role. They're probably going to play every game that they're available for, actually, like definitely, is Andre Drummond. And so I see him playing around 73 games. I think last year he played 79. I think the year before that he played 70. Andre Drummond is one of those guys who generally stays healthy and is, pretty available. So those six, Maxi, Paul George, Embiid, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, and Andre Drummond, those guys are going to be the guys that, no matter what, like, even if they have a bad camp, I think they're locked into a solid role with this team. They're also the highest paid players on the team. They're the only guys that are not on veteran minimums. So those guys are pretty much our six that are locked in. The next two that I'm going to talk about are, in my head, the two that are going to get the next biggest roles and aren't going to have to prove as much in training camp because of their skill set, their relationships with the coaches and players. So that is Kyle Lowry. So I think Kyle Lowry is going to have a big role in this team, at least bigger than I personally want it to be, as he is, nearing 40 if he's not 40 already. I think Nurse is going to try to play him like 25 minutes a game when, in order to get these younger players in these other positions in the game, we probably should only be playing him 19 minutes a game. But I'd be surprised if he only played 19 minutes a game, if you know what I'm saying. So he's averaged 59 games played over the last few years. So he's going to miss a chunk of games. He's getting older. He needs more rest. So that's why it's important to have someone like Reggie Jackson and Jared McCain ready to go whenever Lowry's not ready to play. Uh, but the other guy who's in that next two that I'm talking about with Kyle Lowry is Eric Gordon. So I think he's going to have a locked in role on this team. He's probably going to play every game he's available for. He has averaged 64 games played over the last few years. So he also misses a few games himself, which is great for other guys and younger players to get a bigger role in those games. But I expect Eric Gordon, with his shooting ability, his ability to shoot from deep, he's going to get a lot of playing time just to be that guy who stretches the floor, maybe play some smaller JJ Redick type of role with Embiid, be a kick out guy who just knocks down threes, and like that's basically it to his role. But he's the most straightforward plug in at shooting guard, make him jack a bunch of threes, and get him off the floor when he's played too much. Um, so those are like my top eight. They're not my personal top eight of who I'd want to play the most. They are who I predict to play the most. So the next four guys I know we've all been waiting for. It's Reggie Jackson, it's Ricky Council the fourth, it's KJ Martin, and it's Guershon Yabusele. Those four are the most in flux, that have the most to gain out of this training camp coming up and out of preseason. I think these four are fighting for minutes. I think Reggie Jackson is fighting to prove that he can be the backup point guard, maybe over Kyle Lowry, though I doubt Nick Nurse is going to go with Reggie Jackson over Kyle Lowry. I think if he proves something in training camp, he'll get himself into the season rotation and get more minutes, maybe take away some of those Kyle Lowry minutes. Like I was saying before, Kyle Lowry is probably going to get like 24 minutes a game, but I'd rather him be at like 19 so that Reggie Jackson can get some run at point guard. Ricky Council, really excited for him. He can fill the shooting guard, backup shooting guard role behind Eric Gordon. I also could see him being the backup three. He is pretty much the only traditional three on the roster after Paul George, if we're counting Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre as shooting guards and power forwards. I think Ricky Council's more cut out to be a straight up three with his athleticism, his defense, his motor, his jumping ability. I think he has a lot to gain. And if he can prove that he can knock down some jumpers, which he was doing in the Summer League, he'll get a bigger role in this team. KJ Martin, I think he's going to get a big role. Whether he earns it or not, I think he'll have it because I think the team wants to kind of market him as this tradable player that other teams might want to like take a dabble at. Everyone knows that's why he got the balloon contract. They're probably hoping they can pair him with one of the vets on the team that might not be meshing so well. So maybe like a Eric Gordon or a Reggie Jackson or something like that. One of those guys might end up getting paired up with KJ Martin in a trade and end up on another team by the end of the year, which will clear room in the rotation a bit because we have 12 players that are going to end up playing a lot. So the last guy is Yabusele, and based on these videos that he's been getting posted of in camp, he looks strong. He looks fit. He dunked on LeBron over the summer. He is dunking in practice. You know, his percentage shooting the three overseas was pretty nice. I think 40%. So like if he can show that range in the NBA, I think he can shoot up, you know, maybe past Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry and get some really solid rotation minutes because he's the only person built or cut out to be a power forward. I know KJ Martin, that's his primary position, but he's more of the height of a small forward, but with the heart and the non shooting ability and the bouncy ability of a four. So that's why he gets thrown into the four. He doesn't shoot enough to be a three, but Yabusele has more size to him, maybe more of a rebounding ability. So I think Yabusele has the most to gain along with Reggie Jackson here in this camp. Um, so I'm really excited about these guys. I'm hoping that all of them get a sizable role because that could end up being an issue down the line if a lot of these guys can't lock in and buy into their role. Being a smaller role player who's only getting maybe 8 to 12 minutes most nights. Um, but I think with Paul George and Embiid, and even Caleb Martin and Oubre, they usually miss a few games every season. I think those games that they miss, even Lowry and Gordon miss a lot of minutes. I think all these guys are going to be on and off the floor, which means that in those games, everybody else who's down and usually getting 9 minutes a game will end up getting like 22 minutes in those games that all those people aren't playing. So I think the rookies on the team, Adem Bona and Jared McCain, aren't going to get much playing time, except in those games where those stars are sitting out. McCain just didn't show enough in the summer league. A little bit inconsistent, streaky with his shooting. Not good enough of a floor general yet to maybe knock out Reggie Jackson or Kyle Lowry. Um, so we really got to just be mindful of that. And then Bona, I think he's going to have a bigger role and play more minutes and more games than McCain because Embiid traditionally is going to not play in back to backs. He's going to miss a bunch of games. Um, we have 15 back to backs, so that means there are at least 15 games where Drummond's going to be the starter. And when Drummond's the starter, Bona's going to probably have to be the end up as the backup center. So he's going to have a role there for him in those games that Embiid doesn't play. I don't see that same thing so much for McCain unless we make a trade of, like I said, Reggie Jackson or Eric Gordon. So, um, yeah, I'm really excited for this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you're excited for the Sixers. Let me know who you think's going to have a breakout role. Let me know some players, your prediction on like KJ Martin or Yabusele. Like, are any of those guys in your book going to end up getting at least 20 minutes a game? Because as you can see on my list here, I only have the starting five playing more than 20 minutes per game in my ideal setting. But if there was anybody on the team who averaged 20 minutes or more per game, who would it be? Um, do you see Andre Drummond getting some minutes in at center with Embiid playing power forward? I doubt that's going to happen, but are we going to see some crazy lineup out there this year? Is there some crazy lineup that you really want to see out of these players on the roster? Leave it in the comments. So, like always, like, comment, subscribe. You know.